Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant Dawn, watching the massive alien station grow larger on the view screen. His ship was small compared to the hundreds of vessels docked around the council chambers. Earth had been part of the galactic community for 30 years now, but humanity still felt like unwelcome guests at a party meant for others. "Captain, we're being hailed by the Vrexian flagship," Lieutenant Amy Foster said from her station. Her voice carried a tension that Jake felt in his own chest. "Put them through," he replied, straightening his uniform. The screen flickered, and a Vrexian commander appeared. The alien's 6 eyes studied Jake with what looked like boredom. The Vrexians were one of the oldest races in the council, and they never let anyone forget it. "Human vessel. You will dock at Port 73. Your ambassador will be escorted to the council chambers in 1 hour. Do not deviate from assigned corridors." The connection cut before Jake could respond. "Friendly as always," Amy muttered. Jake allowed himself a small smile. "Dock us, Lieutenant. Let's get the ambassador to her meeting." Ambassador Helen Drake was waiting in the docking bay when Jake arrived. She was a tall woman in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Her face showed the weight of representing Earth to species that looked down on humans as barely civilized newcomers. "Captain Morrison," she greeted him, "I have a bad feeling about today's session." "What's going on?" Jake asked as they walked through the sterile corridors of the station. "The Vrexians requested an emergency council vote. They won't tell us what it's about. But my contacts say it concerns Earth directly." Helen's jaw tightened. "And when the Vrexians want something, the council usually gives it to them." The council chamber was enormous, with seating for representatives from 44 different species. Earth's section was in the back, naturally. Jake stood against the wall while Helen took her seat. The room slowly filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Some walked on 2 legs, others on 4 or 6. Some breathed oxygen, others wore environmental suits. The Vrexian Prime Speaker called the session to order. His translator device rendered his clicking speech into words Jake could understand. "We gather today to address a growing threat to galactic peace," the speaker began. "The human species has proven itself unwilling to follow council guidelines. Their military grows each year. They expand aggressively into unclaimed space. They refuse to accept proper oversight of their activities." Jake felt his stomach drop. Helen sat perfectly still, her face a mask of diplomatic calm. "Therefore," the speaker continued, "the Vrexian Empire proposes immediate action. Humanity must surrender all military vessels to council authority within 30 days. They must accept Vrexian peacekeeping forces in their home system. They must submit to proper governance until they prove themselves capable of responsible self-rule." The chamber erupted in discussion. Jake saw some species nodding in agreement while others looked uncertain. Helen stood, requesting to speak. "The council recognizes the human ambassador," the speaker said, his tone making it clear this was a mere formality. "This is outrageous," Helen said, her voice carrying across the chamber. "Earth has followed every council regulation. We have committed no crimes, started no wars, threatened no one. This proposal is nothing more than a land grab by the Vrexian Empire." "You prove our point with your aggressive tone," the speaker replied smoothly. "Humans are too emotional, too quick to violence. Your species has a documented history of warfare spanning thousands of years. You nearly destroyed your own world with nuclear weapons. The Council cannot risk such instability spreading to the peaceful galaxy we have built." "We have been peaceful members of this council for 3 decades, Helen argued. "We deserve the same rights as any other species." "Rights are earned, not given," the speaker said. "The council will now vote." Jake watched in growing horror as species after species voted in favor of the Vrexian proposal. Some seemed reluctant, but fear of Vrexian displeasure was apparently stronger than any sense of justice. Only the Kalari abstained, their representative refusing to vote either way. The final count was 43-1, with Earth's vote against obviously meaningless. "The motion passes," the speaker announced. "Humanity has 30 days to comply. Failure to do so will result in enforcement action by the full council fleet." Helen stood again, her face pale but her voice steady. "This is a mistake. History will judge this decision harshly." "History is written by those who survive," the speaker replied. Session adjourned. The trip back to the Valiant Dawn was silent. Jake wanted to say something comforting, but what could he say? Earth was being given a choice between surrender and annihilation. Back on the ship, Dr. Lisa Chen met them in the conference room. She was Earth's chief xenobiologist assigned to the diplomatic mission, a small woman with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "I've been analyzing council records," Lisa said without preamble. "The Vrexians have been preparing this for years. They've been feeding false information about humanity to other species, making us look more dangerous than we are." "Can we prove it?" Helen asked. "Maybe, but it won't matter. The vote already happened." Lisa pulled up a holographic display. "I found something else, though. 7 other species have disappeared from council records over the past 200 years. They were all described as problematic right before they vanished." Jake felt cold. "You're saying the Vrexians have done this before?" "And worse," Lisa confirmed. "I think those species are extinct. The Vrexians don't just occupy troublesome worlds, they erase them." Helen sat down heavily. "Then we have to warn Earth. They need to know what's really coming." Jake activated the ship's communication system and opened a secure channel to Earth. Admiral Kevin Ross appeared on the screen, his weathered face grave. "We watched the vote," Ross said before anyone could speak. "Earth's leaders are meeting now to decide our response." "Admiral, the Vrexians have committed genocide before," Helen said quickly. "This isn't about occupation. They mean to destroy us." Ross nodded slowly. "Then Earth has a decision to make. Do we die on our knees or die on our feet?" "There might be a third option," Jake said, surprising himself. "What if we don't die at all?" Ross raised an eyebrow. "Captain, they outgun us 50-1. The entire council fleet against Earth's defense forces? We'd last maybe a week." "Maybe that's what they think," Jake replied, "and maybe that's our advantage." For the first time that day, Admiral Ross smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. "Get back to Earth, Captain. We have a lot of work to do, and 30 days isn't much time." The Valiant Dawn broke orbit from the council station, turning toward home. Behind them, the Vrexians were already preparing their fleet. They expected humanity to surrender quietly, to accept their fate like the 7 species before them. They expected silence. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Earth's defense headquarters buzzed with activity when Jake Morrison arrived. Officers rushed through corridors carrying datapads and urgent messages. The weight of the coming decision hung over everything like a storm cloud ready to break. Admiral Kevin Ross stood before a massive holographic display showing Earth, Mars, and the 12 human colonies scattered across nearby star systems. Red markers indicated where Vrexian forces were already gathering. There were so many red dots that the blue markers representing human ships looked like tiny islands in a hostile sea. "Captain Morrison, thank you for coming so quickly," Ross said without turning around. "We need every experienced officer for what comes next." Jake stepped up beside the Admiral. "What's the decision, sir?" "That's what we're about to find out." Ross gestured toward the conference room. "The world leaders are voting right now." Inside the conference room, dozens of screens showed representatives from every nation on Earth and every colony world. Senator Nicole Ward from the North American Union was speaking. "We cannot simply surrender," she said, her voice passionate. "The Vrexians have destroyed 7 species before us. If we give them our weapons and let them occupy our worlds, we're signing our own death warrant. And if we fight, We die anyway, countered a colony governor from Beta Station. At least surrender gives us time to negotiate, to find allies, to what? Nicole interrupted. Wait for mercy from an empire that has never shown any? Hope some other species will help us when 43 of them just voted to end our freedom? The debate raged for another 20 minutes. Jake watched the faces on the screens, seeing fear and anger and desperation. Finally, the vote came. It was close, but the result was clear. Earth would not surrender. Ross turned to Jake. Well, Captain, we're going to war. Now comes the hard part, figuring out how to survive it. Sir, Dr. Carter from the Weapons Research Division requested to brief you immediately, an aide announced. Send him in, Ross replied. Dr. Ben Carter entered moments later, carrying a secured data case. He was a thin man with wild hair and eyes that hadn't seen sleep in days. He set the case on the table and entered a long security code. Admiral, I've been working on classified projects for the past 15 years, Ben began. Projects that the Council explicitly banned after the last major war. What kind of projects? Jake asked. Ben opened the case and pulled out a data chip. The kind that could level the playing field. When Earth joined the Council, we agreed to certain weapon restrictions. No gravitational weapons, no planet crackers, no AI-controlled warships. We signed all the treaties. He smiled grimly. But we kept researching, just in case. The holographic display changed, showing schematics for weapons Jake had never seen before. Massive cannons that could bend space itself, missiles that phase through shields, drones controlled by quantum-linked human pilots. Project Thunderbreak, Ben explained. We've been building these systems in secret, hidden in asteroids and deep space stations where Council sensors wouldn't detect them. We have approximately 300 hidden platforms throughout the Sol system. Ross leaned forward. Why wasn't I told about this? Need to know basis, sir. Only 5 people in the entire Defense Force knew the full scope. But now you need to know, because in 28 days the Vrexian fleet will arrive expecting to find a defenseless system. Ben's expression hardened. Instead, they're going to fly into the most fortified kill zone in known space. Jake felt a spark of hope for the first time since the Council vote. Can we actually win? Win? Probably not, Ben admitted. But we can make them pay for every meter of space they take. We can hurt them badly enough that other species might think twice about helping them. We can show the galaxy that humanity doesn't break easily. The door opened again, and Colonel Ryan Hayes entered. He commanded the Mars defense grid, and his presence meant something important was happening. Admiral, we just got word from our intelligence contacts, Ryan said. The Vrexian fleet is moving early. They're not waiting the full 30 days. Best estimate is they'll arrive in 72 hours. 72 hours? Nicole Ward appeared on one of the screens. We're not ready. Our ships aren't all in position. The colonies need more time to evacuate civilians. Ross stood up straight, and Jake saw the old warrior make his decision. Then we work with what we have. Colonel Hayes, activate all defense platforms. Dr. Carter, get Project Thunderbreak online. Captain Morrison, I'm giving you command of Strike Group 7. You'll take 5 of our fastest ships and hit their advanced scouts before they report our full capabilities. A suicide mission, Jake said quietly. No, Ross corrected. A delay mission. Buy us time to prepare. If you can take out their scouts, the main fleet will arrive blind. That's worth the risk. Lieutenant Amy Foster stepped forward from where she'd been standing quietly by the wall. The Valiant Dawn's crew volunteers, sir. All of us. Ross nodded. Good. You leave in 2 hours. Make every shot count. As the meeting broke up, Jake found Dr. Lisa Chen in the science division. She was surrounded by holographic displays showing alien ship designs and tactical data. I've been studying Vrexian warfare, she said when Jake approached. They're efficient, brutal, and they've never lost a major battle. They rely on overwhelming force and superior shielding technology. Any weaknesses? Jake asked. Maybe. Lisa highlighted a section of a Vrexian warship. Their ships are heavily automated. They don't like close combat. They prefer to sit back and pound enemies from distance. If you can get inside their optimal firing range, their own size works against them. So we need to get close, Jake mused. Very close. Ramming distance if necessary. Lisa met his eyes. Jake, I know what you're about to do. Just come back, okay? I'll try, he promised, though they both knew the odds. 2 hours later, the Valiant Dawn and 4 other ships broke orbit from Earth. Jake looked back at the blue planet growing smaller behind them, wondering if he'd ever see it again. Around him, his crew worked their stations with grim determination. All ships report ready, Amy announced from Tactical. Set course for the outer system, Jake ordered. Somewhere out there, Vrexian scouts are mapping our defenses. Let's go teach them about human hospitality. The small fleet accelerated into the darkness. Behind them, Earth prepared for war. Hidden weapons platforms powered up for the first time. Defense grids ran final checks. Civilian transports began evacuating non-essential personnel from the orbital stations. In the Senate building, Nicole Ward addressed a joint session of government leaders. In 72 hours, the Vrexian Empire will discover that humanity is not like the other species they've destroyed. We've faced extinction before, from ice ages, from plagues, from our own weapons. We're still here, and we're not going anywhere. On Mars, Colonel Hayes watched as massive cannons rose from hidden silos, weapons far more powerful than the Council believed any human installation possessed. His crews worked around the clock, loading ammunition that technically shouldn't exist. In orbit around Earth, Admiral Ross looked at the tactical display showing Vrexian forces approaching. The numbers were terrifying. 300 warships against Earth's 65. Thousands of fighters against hundreds. By every logical calculation, humanity should surrender. But humans had never been very logical when their survival was at stake. Ross opened a communication channel to every human ship, station, and colony. His face appeared on millions of screens. People of Earth and the colonies, he began. In 3 days, we face an enemy that thinks we're weak. They think we'll break easily. They think we're primitives playing at civilization. He paused. Let's show them what humans are really made of. Let's show them that we don't break. We don't surrender. And we sure as hell don't go quietly. Across human space, people watched their admiral and felt something stir in their chests. It was fear, yes, but it was also something else. Something older and more dangerous. The same thing that had driven their ancestors to cross oceans, climb mountains, and eventually reach for the stars. The Vrexians expected humanity to fold. They expected silence. They were about to get a storm instead. The Vrexian scout ships appeared on the edge of the solar system exactly when intelligence predicted. 3 vessels, each larger than any human warship, moving with the confidence of predators who'd never met real resistance. Jake Morrison watched them from the Valiant Dawn's bridge, his ship hidden behind a large asteroid along with the rest of Strike Group 7. The scouts were scanning everything, mapping defensive positions, counting human ships. They expected to send their data back to the main fleet unopposed. They're not even running defensive patterns, Amy Foster observed from Tactical. They think we won't fight. Their mistake, Jake replied. All ships, engage on my mark. Target their communication arrays first. We don't want them warning the fleet. The 5 human ships erupted from cover, engines burning hot as they accelerated toward the scouts. For a moment, the Vrexians seemed confused by the sudden attack. Then their shields came up and their weapons began tracking targets. Evasive maneuvers, Jake ordered as plasma bolts streaked past his ship. Get us in close. The Valiant Dawn twisted and dove, dodging fire that would have vaporized her with a direct hit. But Jake wasn't trying to survive long-range combat. He was trying to close the distance. Firing missiles, Amy announced. The experimental weapons Dr. Carter had developed shot forward, and instead of exploding against shields, they phased through and detonated inside the scout's hull. The alien ship shuddered, its shields flickering. "All ships concentrate fire on the lead scout," Jake commanded. The 5 human vessels poured everything they had into the wounded Vrexian ship. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then the scout's reactor went critical, and the ship tore itself apart in a blinding flash. "One down," Amy said, but there was no celebration in her voice. The other 2 scouts were already maneuvering, bringing more weapons to bear, and they were no longer underestimating the humans. 72 hours later, the main Vrexian fleet arrived at the outer edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships in perfect formation, enough firepower to crack planets. At their head flew the flagship of Vrexian War Commander Zethus, a veteran of 50 campaigns who had never known defeat. "Report," Zethus commanded, his translator turning his clicks into harsh words. "Our scout ships were destroyed," the tactical officer reported. "We're receiving no data on human defensive positions." Zethus felt something unusual, a flicker of concern. Species that were about to surrender didn't destroy scout ships. "Proceed with caution. Full sensor sweeps. Shields to maximum." The fleet advanced into the system, and that's when Earth's trap was sprung. Hidden weapons platforms that had been powered down and undetectable suddenly came online throughout the asteroid belt. Hundreds of them, each mounting weapons that shouldn't exist according to Council law. They fired as one, and the carefully organized Vrexian formation dissolved into chaos. On Mars, Colonel Ryan Hayes watched his tactical display with satisfaction as the first wave of fire struck home. "Batteries 2 through 15 commence firing, make them count." Massive cannons rose from hidden positions across Mars's surface. They'd been disguised as mining equipment, as terraforming stations, as anything except what they really were. Now they revealed their true purpose, launching projectiles at speeds that punched through shields like paper. 3 Vrexian cruisers died in the opening salvo. 5 more were crippled. The perfect formation collapsed as ships scattered to avoid the unexpected firestorm. Commander Zethus gripped his command throne. "How is this possible? Intelligence said humans had minimal defenses." "They lied to us," his tactical officer said, fear creeping into his voice. "Or we lied to ourselves." On Earth, Admiral Ross watched the battle unfold. The hidden platforms had done their job, shocked the Vrexians, bought time, evened the odds slightly. But it wouldn't be enough. The Vrexian fleet was already recovering, regrouping, preparing to overwhelm the defenses through sheer numbers. "Launch all fighters," Ross ordered. "Get our capital ships into formation. Today we show them what humans can do." Commander Luke Patterson led the Warhawk's fighter squadron out from Earth's orbital station. His experimental fighter moved faster than anything the Vrexians had seen, powered by engines that bent the rules of physics. Behind him, 200 more fighters streamed into space. "Warhawks, on me," Luke transmitted. "We're going for their carriers. Take out their fighter bays and we control the battlefield." The human fighters dove into the Vrexian fleet like hawks among pigeons. They were smaller, faster, more maneuverable. The Vrexian fighters were built for long-range combat, for safe engagement distances. The humans got in close, too close for the bigger ships to fire without hitting their own craft. Luke's targeting computer locked onto a Vrexian carrier's flight deck. He fired his missiles and pulled up hard, feeling the G-forces press him into his seat despite the dampeners. Behind him, the carrier's bay exploded, trapping hundreds of enemy fighters inside. But the Vrexians were adapting. Their numbers were too great. For every ship the humans destroyed, 3 more took its place. The hidden platforms were being systematically destroyed now that the Vrexians knew where to look. Jake Morrison brought the valiant Dawn into close combat with a Vrexian destroyer. The alien ship was 5 times larger, but Jake had learned something in his fight with the scouts. Vrexian ships couldn't maneuver well at close range. "Amy, target their main reactor," he said, pushing his ship into a position no sane captain would attempt. The Valiant Dawn scraped along the destroyer's hull, so close that the shields interacted, sparking and flaring. "Firing!" Amy said, and the Valiant Dawn's main gun punched a hole straight through the destroyer's armor. The reactor breach lit up space like a small sun. But the Valiant Dawn didn't escape cleanly. Another Vrexian ship caught her with a plasma barrage. Alarms screamed across the bridge. The ship shuddered and began to list. "We're venting atmosphere," Amy reported. "Hull breaches on 3 decks. Main power failing." Jake made a decision. "All hands, abandon ship. Get to the escape pods. Amy, set collision course for that battleship. Let's make our last act count." The crew rushed to the escape pods as Jake locked the navigation controls. The Valiant Dawn, mortally wounded but still fighting, accelerated toward the Vrexian battleship. At the last moment, Jake ran for the last escape pod, launching just as his ship struck the enemy vessel. The impact drove the Valiant Dawn deep into the battleship's superstructure. Both ships began to break apart, secondary explosions rippling along their lengths. Jake's escape pod tumbled away, his last view of his ship showing her nose buried in the heart of an enemy warship. The battle raged for 18 hours. Human ships fought with a ferocity that shocked the Vrexians. When shields failed, humans rammed. When weapons ran out, they used their ships as weapons. The Vrexians had expected a civilized surrender, or maybe a brief, hopeless fight. Instead, they got humans who fought like demons, who refused to break, who made every meter of space cost blood. By the time both sides pulled back to regroup, the Vrexian fleet had lost over 90 ships. Human losses were heavy too. 30 ships destroyed, many more damaged. But they'd held. Earth still stood. Mars still fought. The colonies still broadcast defiance. In his flagship, Commander Zethus stared at his casualty reports in disbelief. 90 ships, nearly a third of his fleet, against primitives, against a species the Council had dismissed as weak. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Vrexian High Command," his communication officer reported. The Supreme Commander appeared on the screen, all 6 eyes burning with anger. "Explain these losses, Zethus." "The humans were prepared, Supreme Commander. They had weapons we didn't know existed. They fight with a savagery we've never encountered." "Excuses," the Supreme Commander hissed. "You have 200 ships remaining. Humanity has 35 functional vessels. End this." The transmission cut off, and Zethus looked at his tactical display. His fleet still outnumbered the humans 6-1. By any logical calculation, he should win the next engagement easily. But logic, he was beginning to realize, didn't apply to humans the way it did to other species. On Earth, Admiral Ross counted his remaining ships and knew another battle like the last one would finish them. They'd hurt the Vrexians badly, shocked the galaxy, proven humans could fight. But they couldn't win a war of attrition. He opened a secure channel to his remaining captains. Jake Morrison's face appeared among them, bruised and bandaged, but alive after his pod was recovered. "The Vrexians will attack again soon," Ross said, "and this time they won't underestimate us, so we're not going to wait. We're going to hit them first. Hit them hard and hit them where they don't expect." "Where's that, sir?" Jake asked. Ross smiled grimly. "Their supply lines, their shipyards, their home system. They brought war to our doorstep. Time to return the favor." Captain Tracy Miller stood on the bridge of the Stormbreaker, studying the star map that showed Vrexian territory. Her ship was one of Earth's newest carriers, rushed into service when war became inevitable. Now she led a strike force of 15 ships deep into enemy space, doing something no one had expected humans to attempt, taking the fight to the Vrexians. 3 Vrexian shipyards detected in the Kelmar system, her tactical officer reported. Moderate defenses. They're not expecting an attack this far from the front lines. "Good," Tracy replied. "That's what we're counting on. All ships, battle stations. We go in fast, hit hard, and leave before reinforcements arrive." The human fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel right on top of the shipyards. The Vrexian defenders barely had time to raise shields before human missiles were already impacting their hulls. Tracy's fighters swept through the construction docks, destroying half-built warships that would never see combat now. "Ma'am, we're receiving a transmission from the shipyard commander," her communication officer said. "He's demanding we surrender." Tracy almost laughed. "Tell him he's confused about who's surrendering to whom, then blow up his command station." The battle was over in 30 minutes. 3 shipyards destroyed, along with the 47 warships under construction. The Vrexians had lost more production capacity in half an hour than they'd lost in the previous decade. As the Stormbreaker jumped back to faster-than-light speed, Tracy allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The Vrexians wanted war. Now they were getting it, on human terms. Back on Earth, Ambassador Helen Drake stood before the Galactic Council once again. But this time, she wasn't asking for mercy or pleading for justice. This time, she was delivering a message. "For 30 years, Earth accepted its place in your council," she said, her voice carrying to every species present. "We followed your laws. We respected your traditions. We believed in the promise of civilized cooperation." She paused, letting silence fill the chamber. "Then you voted to destroy us based on lies. You gave one empire permission to commit genocide because we were too aggressive for your comfort." The Vrexian Prime Speaker rose to object, but Helen cut him off. "I'm not finished. You expected us to accept your decision quietly, to go to our extinction without complaint. That's what you thought humans would do." Her expression hardened. "You were wrong. Earth will not surrender. Earth will not be occupied. And Earth will not stand alone while tyrants rule this council." She activated a holographic display showing footage from recent battles, Vrexian ships exploding, human forces striking deep into enemy territory. The shock on alien faces was visible throughout the chamber. "This war will end one of 2 ways," Helen continued. "Either the Vrexian Empire withdraws and faces justice for its crimes, or humanity drags it down into the dark. Your choice. But know this, we're done being the galaxy's punching bag." Dr. Lisa Chen sat in her lab on Earth, analyzing battlefield data when an unexpected message came through. It was from a Kalari scientist she'd worked with years ago. "Dr. Chen, my government has been watching your war with great interest," the message said. "We abstained from the vote because we suspected the truth about the Vrexians. We have evidence of their past genocides, evidence we're prepared to share with the Council. But we need something from you first, proof that humanity won't become the next empire if you win this war." Lisa composed her response carefully. "We don't want an empire. We just want to survive. Send us your evidence. Let's expose the Vrexians together." Within days, the Kalari data was making its way across the galaxy. Names of extinct species, records the Vrexians had tried to delete, proof of war crimes going back 2 centuries. Several council species that had supported the Vrexian proposal began to quietly withdraw their backing. Meanwhile, General Eric Stone led the first human marine assault on a Vrexian military station. His troops wore powered armor that enhanced their already considerable strength, making them devastating in close combat. The Vrexian defenders were used to civilized warfare, ranged combat, tactical retreats, negotiated surrenders. They weren't prepared for humans who charged through their defensive positions, who fought hand-to-hand when ammunition ran out, who refused to retreat even when wounded. "This is insanity," a Vrexian officer muttered as human marines breached his position. "They fight like beasts." "No," his commander replied, firing desperately. "They fight like they have nothing left to lose. That makes them more dangerous than any weapon." The station fell in 6 hours. General Stone sent the captured Vrexian troops back to their fleet with a message carved into the station's hull in letters a kilometer high. Earth sends its regards. Admiral Kevin Ross studied the latest intelligence reports with satisfaction. The war was shifting. What had started as certain human defeat was now a brutal stalemate. The Vrexians were winning battles but losing the war. Their supply lines were in chaos. Their shipyards were destroyed. Their allies were deserting them. Admiral, Captain Morrison is requesting permission for Operation Avalanche, an aide reported. Ross pulled up Jake's proposal and whistled softly. It was audacious, maybe even crazy. Jake wanted to take the entire human fleet, bypass the Vrexian positions in the Sol system, and strike directly at their homeworld. "Get him on the comm," Ross ordered. Jake appeared on screen, still bearing scars from his escape pod crash, but looking determined. "Admiral, we can't win by defending Earth forever. Eventually they'll wear us down. But if we threaten their homeworld, they'll have to pull back to defend it." "It's risky," Ross said. "If we lose the fleet, Earth is defenseless." "Earth is dead if we keep fighting this way," Jake countered. "This gives us a chance. Force them to negotiate from a position of mutual destruction rather than our extinction." Ross thought about it for exactly 10 seconds. "Operation Avalanche is approved. You've got every ship that can still fly. Make it count, Captain. You're now Admiral Morrison, by the way. Someone needs to lead this fleet, might as well be the man with the crazy plans." 2 weeks later, the human fleet arrived in Vrexian home space. 60 ships, battered and scarred from months of combat, but still fighting. They took up position in orbit around the Vrexian home world, weapons trained on the planet below. Commander Zethus received the ultimatum personally. The human fleet would destroy every military installation on the planet if the Vrexian Empire didn't stand down. Not the cities, not the civilians, but every shipyard, every weapons factory, every military base. "They're bluffing," one of his advisors said. "They won't actually fire on a planet." "Won't they?" Zethus replied, thinking of the battles he'd fought. "These are humans. They rammed battleships with damaged cruisers. They fought with knives when their guns ran empty. They sang songs while they died." He looked at the tactical display showing the human fleet. "No, they're not bluffing. They'll do exactly what they promise." The Vrexian Supreme Commander appeared on every screen. "You dare threaten our home world?" Jake Morrison, newly promoted and still getting used to his admiral's rank, replied calmly. "You threatened ours first. We're just returning the favor. Call off your forces. Withdraw from human space. Submit to council investigation of your war crimes, or we start shooting, and we don't stop until your war machine is dust." "You'll die here," the Supreme Commander hissed. "We have defense fleets incoming. You're trapped." "Maybe," Jake agreed, "but you'll lose your homeworld's defenses first. Worth it?" For a long moment, silence filled the void. The galaxy held its breath. 2 species balanced on the knife edge between mutual destruction and peace. Finally, the Supreme Commander spoke, his voice bitter with defeat. "Stand down! All Vrexian forces, cease offensive operations, withdraw to defensive positions." Jake didn't allow himself to celebrate. Not yet. "Withdraw from the Sol system entirely. Now!" On Earth, people watched their screens in disbelief as Vrexian ships began turning away, beginning the long journey out of human space. The war wasn't over. There were still negotiations, still tensions, still dangers. But the immediate threat was past. Ambassador Helen Drake stood before the council again, and this time every species was listening. Humanity proved something important in this war. We proved that being underestimated is dangerous. We proved that even the smallest species can bite back. And we proved that this council needs serious reform. The Kalari representative stood. "We support Earth's call for reform. The evidence of Rexian crimes is clear. They must face justice. One by one, other species stood. Some reluctantly, some eagerly, but all recognizing that the balance of galactic power had fundamentally shifted. The Vrexian Prime speaker sat silent, all 6 eyes fixed on Helen. In them, she saw something new. Not contempt, not boredom, fear. "The Council will convene a war crimes tribunal," the chairman announced, "and we will discuss restructuring Council authority to prevent this from happening again." Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at the stars. They'd survived. Against impossible odds, humanity had survived. And more than that, they'd changed the galaxy forever. "Admiral, we're receiving thanks from 3 species that were scheduled for Vrexian oversight," Amy Foster reported. "They say Earth saved them." "We saved ourselves," Jake replied. "But if we helped others in the process, that's good too." The human fleet began its long journey home. Behind them, the Vrexian Empire started its collapse. Ahead of them, a galaxy that would never underestimate humanity again. 6 months after the war began, Admiral Jake Morrison walked through the rebuilt orbital station above Earth. Construction crews were still repairing damage from the battles, but life had returned to something approaching normal. The human fleet was docked at various ports, scarred but victorious, their names now legend across the galaxy. Jake stopped at a viewport and looked down at Earth. The blue planet had survived another brush with extinction. He wondered if humans would ever stop facing such threats, or if survival against the odds was just part of being human. "Admiral Morrison, the delegation from the Vrexian homeworld has arrived," Lieutenant Amy Foster informed him. She'd been promoted to commander and now served as his second-in-command. They're waiting in Conference Room 3. The Vrexian delegation consisted of 5 officials, none of them military. The Empire's war machine had been dismantled under Council supervision. Their fleet was reduced to defensive ships only. The species that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries now sat before a human admiral, waiting to learn their fate. "We come to discuss terms," their leader said through a translator. His 6 eyes couldn't quite meet Jake's gaze. "The Council has placed our species under human oversight until we prove ourselves reformed." Jake had spent weeks preparing for this moment. Earth's leaders had debated endlessly about how to handle victory. Some wanted harsh punishment, others wanted forgiveness. Jake had argued for something in between. "The Vrexian Empire is dissolved," Jake said. "Your species will maintain self-governance, but under observation. You'll pay reparations to the families of those killed in the war. Your military academies will include human advisors who will teach you that strength doesn't mean domination." He paused. "But here's the important part. We're not going to do to you what you tried to do to us. No genocide, no enslavement, just consequences and change." One of the Vrexian delegates looked up in surprise. "Why? We tried to destroy you. We've destroyed others before you. Why show mercy?" "Because that's the difference between you and us," Jake replied. "We fight when we have to, but we don't become monsters to defeat monsters." The negotiations took 3 hours, but at the end, a treaty was signed. The Vrexians would spend the next decade proving they could be peaceful members of the galactic community. If they succeeded, full autonomy would be restored. If they failed, the restrictions would continue. On Mars, Colonel Ryan Hayes oversaw the conversion of his weapons platforms into scientific research stations. The cannons that had torn apart Vrexian ships were being repurposed for deep space exploration and asteroid mining. War had forced humanity to advance its technology by decades. Now that technology would be used for peace. "Strange, isn't it?" his second-in-command said. 6 months ago, we were preparing to die. Now we're building observatories." "That's humans for you," Ryan replied. "We'll fight to the death if we have to." but we'd rather explore the stars. At the Galactic Council headquarters, Ambassador Helen Drake participated in the first session of the Reformed Council. The chamber had been reorganized. Species were no longer ranked by age or power. Instead, each had equal representation. A new charter guaranteed rights for all member species and established strict penalties for aggressive behavior. Helen stood to address the assembly. We gather here not as victors and defeated, but as equals trying to build something better. Earth didn't fight a war to dominate the galaxy. We fought to survive. Now we want to use that survival to create a council that protects all species, not just the powerful ones. The Kalari representative, Ambassador Krell, rose to support her. The Kalari proudly stand with humanity in this endeavor. Together, we can ensure that what happened to Earth and to the 7 species before them never happens again. The vote was unanimous. The new council charter passed into law. For the first time in galactic history, might didn't automatically make right. Dr. Lisa Chen stood in her new laboratory on the council station. It was the first joint research facility where scientists from dozens of species worked together without restrictions. Projects that would have taken centuries could now be completed in decades with shared knowledge and resources. Dr. Chen, we're ready to begin the quantum communication experiment, a Kalari scientist called out. Lisa smiled. Then let's make history. Again. General Eric Stone had traded his combat armor for a dress uniform. He now commanded the Joint Peacekeeping Force, a military unit composed of soldiers from multiple species. Their mission was to prevent conflicts before they started and protect vulnerable species from aggression. It's strange leading troops who used to shoot at us, his aide commented as they watched human and Kalari Marines training together. They'll get used to it, Eric replied. War makes enemies, peace makes friends. We're just helping the process along. In a small apartment on Earth, Captain Tracy Miller, retired from active duty after the war, taught a class of young people about her experiences. They listened with wide eyes as she described the raids on Vrexian shipyards and the desperate battles in deep space. Why did you keep fighting? One student asked. When the odds were so bad? Tracy thought about it. Because giving up meant extinction. And humans don't go extinct easily. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and near-nuclear annihilation. We weren't about to let some alien empire be the thing that finally finished us off. Are you glad we won? Another student asked. I'm glad we survived, Tracy corrected. Winning just meant we got to choose what came next. And we chose peace, when we could have chosen revenge. On the anniversary of the war's end, Admiral Ross gave a speech at the memorial built for those who died defending Earth. 5,000 names were carved into the black stone, representing the soldiers, sailors, and civilians who hadn't survived to see peace. These people died defending not just Earth, but the idea that small species have a right to exist, Ross said. They died proving that being young doesn't mean being weak, and that being peaceful doesn't mean being helpless. Their sacrifice changed the galaxy. Let's make sure we're worthy of it. Jake Morrison stood among the crowd, listening. He'd been promoted again, now overseeing all human military operations, but he still felt like the captain of a destroyed ship, making desperate decisions in the hope of seeing another dawn. After the ceremony, he met with Dr. Ben Carter, whose weapons had made human survival possible. Project Thunderbreak is being decommissioned, Ben said. We're converting the technology for civilian use. Imagine what we can do with weapons-grade gravitational manipulators when we use them to move asteroids or terraform planets. Strange how the tools of war become the tools of peace, Jake observed. Only if the warriors choose peace, Ben replied. That's what made this different. We won. And we chose not to become what we defeated. A new species arrived at the council chambers, requesting membership. They were young, having only recently developed faster-than-light travel. The council session to consider their application drew representatives from across the galaxy. The debate was brief. When the vote was called, every species voted in favor. The new species was welcomed with full rights and protections, no probationary period, no restrictions. Ambassador Helen Drake approached them after the session. "Welcome to the galactic community. You're joining at a good time. We just finished teaching everyone how to behave." The alien representative looked confused. "We heard about the war with humanity. We expected you to be conquerors now." "We could have been," Helen admitted. "We had the power, the momentum, the fear. But we remembered what it felt like to be threatened with extinction. So instead of building an empire, we built a better council, one that protects species like yours." "Why would you do that?" the alien asked. "Because we're human," Helen replied simply. "We fight like demons when threatened. But when the fight is over, we'd rather make friends than rule over enemies." At the edge of Vrexian space, a joint patrol of human and Vrexian ships worked together to stop pirates. It was awkward at first. Species that had tried to kill each other now protecting trading routes together. But slowly, grudgingly, they learned to cooperate. Commander Amy Foster commanded the human contingent. She watched a Vrexian ship rescue a damaged human freighter and felt something she never expected. Hope. Maybe species could change. Maybe old enemies could become new allies. "All ships, pirate vessels detected," she announced. "Let's show them what unified defense looks like." The mixed fleet moved as one, and the pirates fled without engaging. It was a small victory, but symbolic. The galaxy was learning a new way. Jake Morrison returned to Earth for the formal end-of-war celebration. Cities across the planet held festivals. People danced in the streets, celebrating survival and peace in equal measure. He stood on a balcony overlooking the crowd and thought about everything that had happened. The council vote that should have ended humanity. The desperate battles against impossible odds. The moment when the Vrexian Empire blinked first. "What are you thinking about?" Amy asked, joining him. "I'm thinking that they expected us to disappear quietly into the night," Jake said. "They expected silence, submission, easy victory." "And instead?" Amy prompted. "Instead, we became the storm that cleared the galaxy's skies," Jake replied. "We fought when we had to, won when everyone said we'd lose, and showed mercy when we could have taken revenge. That's what humanity is. That's what we've always been." Below them, the celebrations continued. Earth had survived. Humanity had survived. And more than that, they'd changed the galaxy for the better. The next day, Jake received orders for his next mission. The Council wanted human ships to help explore an uncharted region of space. It was a joint mission with 6 other species, seeking new worlds and new civilizations. "From war to exploration in 6 months," Amy commented. "Only humans," Jake smiled. "We spent millions of years fighting to survive on one planet. Then we fought to survive in space. Now maybe we can spend the next million years discovering instead of fighting." "And if something threatens us again?" Amy asked. "Then we'll remind them what happened to the last empire that tried," Jake said. "But until then, let's see what else is out there." The human fleet departed Earth, heading for unknown space. They carried weapons still because the galaxy could be dangerous. But they also carried hope, curiosity, and the hard-won knowledge that survival wasn't enough. Humanity wanted to thrive, to explore, to build something better. Behind them, Earth continued rebuilding. The scars of war were slowly fading, replaced by new construction and new dreams. The Vrexian Empire was becoming a democracy. The Galactic Council was learning justice, and humanity was learning that being powerful didn't mean being feared. It meant being responsible. In a small cafe in New York, a Vrexian tourist sat nervously, trying human food for the first time. A human child approached, curious about the 6-eyed alien. Did you fight in the war? The child asked innocently. Yes, the Vrexian admitted. On the wrong side. The child thought about this. My dad says wars end, but friendships don't have to. Want to try chocolate? It's really good. The Vrexian accepted the offered candy, and in that small moment, the future took shape. Not perfect, not easy, but better than the past. The galaxy had expected humanity to be another victim, another extinct species, another footnote in history. Instead, humanity had become the storm that changed everything. And now, in the calm after that storm, a new era was beginning.